What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 4 of the Tacoma build series. I have a bunch of stuff planned for this video. I don't know what all we're gonna actually get done. It seems like everything that I plan to do takes a lot longer than what it's supposed to, which is to be expected. So we're gonna try and get as much done as we can, but we're just gonna kind of play it by ear and kind of feel things out and see how it goes. But first things first, today I want to get the Collins Adapters kit installed on the CD09 transmission and get it ready to go. First thing I got to do is I have to cut the bell housing off of this transmission. So I'm going to mark it, I'm going to cut it, and then we're going to get the adapter plate and the bell housing for the T56 installed on the transmission. So let's go. Alright, so the first step is we're going to cut the bell housing about a 1/16 of an inch past this band here. We're going to cut it off and then get our input shaft. There's like a cover around the input shaft. We're going to take that off once we get this bell housing cut off. Alright, so now that we got the bell housing cut off, we're going to go ahead and remove this front cover and install our adapter plate to where that bolts. Fluid's still in there. Yikes. Got a leaker. We've got a leaker. Still a lot of fluid in that. Like, did they even drain the thing before they sent it to me? Please. Alright, so one of the next things we have to do, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a stud here with a nut on it. You have to cut this stud flush with the top of the nut in order for the adapter plate to clear that. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so what we're going to do now is install our adapter plate to the bell housing first. And the reason being is that the bolts go in through the back side. So you have to install this to the bell housing before you can bolt this to the case. Just a little taparooski. these are our after plate bolts. Go ahead and torque these to spec. Alright, so next we're going to apply some RTV to this gasket surface and then get this thing bolted up. Normally I like to lay a nice bead on this gasket surface, but the tip of my RTV canister fell off, and I'm not going to let it go to waste, so just kind of have to smear it on with my finger. Alright, so see if I can get this on without smearing this everywhere. Alright guys, so there you have it. The old bell housing cut off, the new one installed. Still have to put my slave cylinder in, but I haven't even gotten that yet, so I'll do that whenever I get it. But at least at this point, you know, the transmission's ready to be bolted up to the engine when it's done. So that's it. Alright guys, so now that we got the transmission all ready to go, let's go ahead and get a couple coats of paint on this engine block in the rear end housing. Alright guys, so unfortunately when I was painting, I guess I never hit the record button on the camera, so I don't have any footage of me actually painting, which really isn't that exciting anyways, but I apologize. Alright guys, so I got the rear end painted, ready to get put back together. Got the block painted. We're still waiting for some parts for it before we start putting it back together. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna put the oil pan on the block and we're gonna bolt up the transmission. We're gonna roll the chassis in. We're gonna go ahead and set it down in the chassis and see if we can't get our mounts lined up to the frame and get everything cut and welded in place. So that way I can paint the frame and I know that everything lines up, and when we're ready to put this thing back in the truck after we get it assembled, we can just go ahead and drop it right in, get it all bolted up, and we're ready to go. so we got the engine and transmission in. All we're kind of doing is getting like a rough mock-up, trying to see where everything lines up. All we did is just bolted the transmission to the bare block. Clutch and everything isn't in it. All I did was put the oil pan on, and right now everything seems like, it looks like it's gonna fit pretty nice. We won't have to do a ton of modifications. I should be able to reuse this stock crossover. I might be able to just kind of fab up a mount. It'll mount to that, and the oil pan looks like it's going to fit down inside between the two frame rails. So we're going to go ahead and make some more adjustments here and then see what we got. All right, so we should clear up here pretty good. The pan fits perfectly in between this cross member and then this cross member here. But I think we're gonna have to cut this cross member off because it doesn't look like, it needs to be a little bit lower and maybe a little bit further back. So I think what we're gonna do is cut this cross member off. We're gonna cut the old engine mounts off the frame rail and then set everything back down in and kind of see where we're at. Alright, so we got the engine sat down right where we want it. It looks like this oil pan is going to work perfectly. We have the transmission sitting down, so we got the right drive shaft angle. Now, we already got the first mount welded in place. We just got it tacked in. So I'm going to go ahead. We got these cut. We're going to tack this one into place and then go to the other side and do the same thing. Alright, so after some consideration, we decided that it was going to be more of a pain to try and adapt the factory cross member and build a mount for this transmission. So what I decided to do, I went out and bought a piece of rectangular tubing. It's, I think, 3" by 4" So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this, I'm gonna kind of fab up a mount, and we're gonna bolt it to the chassis. That way it can be removed if we ever wanna pull the transmission. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so there you have it, guys. Engine and transmission are sitting in the frame. We got our cross member just tacked into place for now. I didn't video it, but I drilled a hole through my cross member and ran a bolt through the stock CD09 mount into the cross member. We got our engine mounts tacked into place. So what this is going to allow us to do is, now that we have the engine transmission sitting where we want it, once I get my rear end put in, we can then take a measurement for our drive shaft length so I can go ahead and get that made. Dude, rule number 1, you cannot work in the garage with no pants on. We talked about this. Yeah. Yeah, it's in the rule book. Thanks, dude. Jeez. Kids these days. Alright guys, so that is going to be it for today. The next video, we're going to be getting the rear end out of this truck, getting the Ford rear end in, so that we can then take our measurement and get that off to the drive shaft people so they can go ahead and make my drive shaft. Also, we're going to get the engine out of the truck so we can go ahead and start building it. My heads and cams should be here hopefully this week. So yeah, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, check out our Facebook page. Also, my wife made an Instagram, so we're going to be posting some updates and some sneak peeks on there as well. So with that, until next time, peace.